Okay, how's it going, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Okay, so in this episode, I thought I'd try to say something about a quote that comes from the French philosopher Albert Camus. It's a bit of a mysterious one, but I've always liked it, and I think it'd be really interesting to explore. Okay, so what Camus said was this. He said, "I do not believe in God, and I'm not an atheist." Now, that sounds like a bit of a paradox, doesn't it? He doesn't believe in God, but he's not an atheist? So, what's going on here? Well, I think that he might mean at least two different things by it. So, well, if you know anything about Camus at all, you know that it's true that strictly speaking, he doesn't believe in God. But when he says he's not an atheist, well, here, first of all, I think he might be referring to what he sees as the sacrality of human beings. And second of all, to what amounts to, on his part, to a kind of pantheistic view of the world. So let me try to briefly take each of these in turn. Okay, so according to Camus, I think it's pretty clear that all human life is sacred. And by the way, there's no better word to turn to than to his book, The Rebel, to see this. Anyway, it's because he sees all human life as sacred that he rejects the legitimacy of any and all political violence. I mean, think about it. If we believe that it's just or right to commit murder in the name of an ideal, no matter how seemingly noble that ideal is, then we believe that the ideal is somehow more important than the human life that we violate. Or, so says Camus. You see, for Camus, the end simply never justifies the means. There's never a future goal that justifies immorality. Nothing is worth human suffering. In other words, the bottom line is that he believed in the complete value of human life. To repeat, for him, there's something sacred about human beings. There's something sacred about human life. Actually, in a very real sense, you might say that for him, human sacrality stands beyond or above any moral system. Which sounds kind of weird, right? Because you might think that human sacredness and morality basically amount to the same thing. But no, not for Camus. You see, Camus thought that the problem with morality is that it leads to generalities or abstractions, and from there, it's a pretty easy road to transgression or injustice. In other words, you can pretty much always justify anything philosophically, the most atrocious of acts even. So it's for this reason, as Camus said himself, that he's abandoned the moral point of view. Instead, he's going to stick with the concrete, particular individual in all of their sacrality and stay away from moral systems and formulations. So, in other words, part of what Camus means by the sacred, then, is real personal love and respect. It's responding to someone as the particular person that they are with a unique love and compassion. So this is one way in which, while there's no God in this picture, there nevertheless still is a sense of love and respect for human dignity that you could argue approximates something divine-like. Okay, well, so the second thing I wanted to talk about was Camus' sort of pantheistic view of the world, which again is why I think you could make sense of him saying that he's not an atheist, even though he doesn't believe in God. Okay, so how do I start this? Okay, so for Camus, there's clearly no afterlife. And there's no ultimate meaning to anything, actually. But nevertheless, he still does think that a special divine-like communion with this world is possible. Now, maybe one way of expressing this difference, and here I'm drawing from one commentator in particular, one way of expressing this difference is to make a distinction between what we could call vertical transcendence on the one hand and horizontal transcendence on the other. So vertical transcendence is essentially a Christian or some kind of otherworldly transcendence. It implies that there's more to this world and to this life, something that stands outside of it. On the other hand, horizontal transcendence, well, that's a transcendence that's not otherworldly. No, it's entirely this worldly, and it has to do with the sacrality of life itself. Okay, well, to put it bluntly, there's no doubt that Camus rejects vertical transcendence. But here's the thing. He does seem to affirm something like a horizontal transcendence. I mean, we should remember that Camus spent his youth in Algeria, and so with its breathtaking, unspoiled Mediterranean landscapes, where, as he said, you can feel a kinship with the world and where the throbbing of one's blood mingles with the violent pulsations of the afternoon sun. Now that's the sort of thing he means by horizontal transcendence. In other words, what Camus describes doesn't appeal to anything outside of the world. It appeals exactly to this world with all of its beauty and its power. So for Camus, true spirituality, you could say, is embodied. It's born of the connection between our physical bodies and this physical world, with its stones and its stars. As he says in one of his novels, the body has a soul in which the soul has no part. So I think that what Camus is doing is that in his rejection of vertical or Christian transcendence, he's actually returning to a vision of the world that's much older. That's to say, he's returning to, or he's reviving, a kind of pagan or pantheistic communion with the world. One which celebrates the sacrality of life itself. One which sees the gods speaking in the sun. One where, as he himself says, he can open his eyes and his heart to the unbearable grandeur of this heat-soaked sky. And actually, when you think about it, it's hard not to see this earthy and this physical and passionate outlook as a clear corruption of Christian or otherworldly transcendence. Anyway, so for Camus, this is how it's possible to not believe in God, but also to not be an atheist. Bye for now.